Hey guys, codeStarter here. So, to make our website more professional, we're going to add a little detail that most websites have and is pretty necessary for any popular website, and that's the favicon. As you can see, YouTube has that in the tab in the corner. It has the little play button. That's the favicon, and so does Facebook. You see, GoDaddy also has one when the page loads. Right there, it has that little guy in it. So, we're going to also have one of these favicons. And I'm going to show you how to do that in a moment. Let me just reopen my index page. So here we go. We're gonna make it look like cheese, because our blog's about cheese. Now you can make it look like whatever you want. You can go into Photoshop. You can make your own, but it has to be at least, or the recommended is 32 by 32 pixels, and then it scales it down, of course, or 16 by 16 or 8 by 8, right? And it has to be a file type of ICO, which is, yeah, it's ICO. And to add that icon in the head, you're going to want to add another line, and this is really simple, easy to memorize, and it's just link rel icon, and then the type is going to be image slash ICO, and then the href is image slash favicon. Now I just downloaded this and I converted it into an ICO online. There's a ton of online ICO converters. It was a JPEG, I just converted it to an ICO. It's super easy. And this line here should add that icon, as you can see. And the thing is that the browser saves the favicon, so it doesn't have to load it every time you go on the page. So it saves it in its cache. So the way you want to change it, if you already have one, you decide to change it, you want to quit all the tabs, close all the windows, and then reopen it, and that should change the icon. So this should work. And for the type, we have the image, because it's an image, and ICO is the file type. If it was a JPEG, we'd write JPEG or JPEG or PNG, but it's an ICO, so we do ICO. And yeah, and this goes in the head. So just a quick recap, we have the doc type HTML, which tells our browser that we're using HTML5. We have the HTML elements, which is our whole entire page. We have the head, which stores all of our information about the page. We have the body, which stores all of our page's content. And all of this stuff here that I highlighted is unnecessary. It's optional. You don't have to have anything in your body, except that'd be a pretty boring web page. And everything in the head, except for the title, is unnecessary. To make a valid HTML page, you need at least the HTML element, the head, the title, and the body, and the doc type. And that would make it valid, according to W3 standards. Alright, so we're going to add a header or a navigation, and I'm going to introduce a couple new tabs, or tags, not tabs. Here, I'll show you. This is starting to get a bit more complicated and more advanced, but I'm going to try my best to explain it. So this is not going to be part of the container. We're going to make it above the container, because in our container, it has the margin on the left and on the right, and we want the header or the nav to be all across the web page. We don't want it to have a margin on the left and right, because that's going to look kind of weird. So that's why we're going to make it outside of the container. And this new tag is called header, and we're going to give it a class of header. Yep, pretty complicated. And all this does is tells the browser that this is a header, and this is sort of important stuff that you have on your page, and it tells Google, the Google search bots, that this is also important stuff, and they should take this into account. There's also the footer element, which is the same but a footer, and that also has important stuff usually. And inside the header, we're going to add another class. I mean another tag. So yeah, we're adding a new tag. It's gonna be nav, which is short for navigation. All right, and then we're gonna add another tag, and this is UL, which stands for unordered list. And it's just yeah, it works well with navigations. It's commonly used with navigations. I learned it like this. It works. Most websites have this setup with the nav, the UL. And then I'm going to teach you another really common tag called LI, which is a list item. So it have the bullet points. I'll show you in a second. And then inside the LI, we're going to add another tag, and it's going to be A. The link is just an anchor tag. And we're going to make I'm going to show you a little trick. We're going to set, we don't have a page yet, so we're going to just set the link to the pound sign. And this basically sets the link to the page that we're currently on. So we're on the index file, or the index page. So if someone clicked on this link, it would just take them to the index page. If we're on a different page, say the home page, someone clicked on this link, it would take them to the home page, or it would just basically reload the page. And then here, let's just write home, just for the sake of it. Now, each of these are going to be these are going to be each item on the navigation. So for the next one, we're just going to have another one, and we're going to also set it to hashtag or pound sign, whatever you choose, number sign, I don't care. And this time we're going to set it to about. And then we're going to have one more. You can choose, you can make these whatever you want. I'm just yeah. And sorry, I forgot the pound sign. And this one is going to be what do you think? Contact. Alright, so now we have 3 links, one to home, one to about, one to contact, except that we didn't make those pages yet, so we just added pound signs. You can make this whatever you want. You can make this poop, you can make it whatever you want, but I'm just going to make it home. And you can also make the class whatever you want. If you want it to be main header, because we might have other headers on the page, main header, you can have it whatever you want. I'm just gonna make it header because that's easy to remember. And yeah, so when we save this and we reload our page, we're gonna have this. So the bullet points come from the LI because they're lists, and then we have home, about, and contact. And you see when I click on it, all it does is it reloads the page and it adds this little pound sign to the end of the link. So yeah, they don't actually go anywhere. I'm clicking on it right now. It doesn't go anywhere. And it adds that bullet point. Right now, it doesn't really look like a navigation, but that's because we didn't add the CSS. And I'm going to add a ton of CSS now. So let's go to main.css. Scroll to the bottom. We don't really need this. I'm just going to delete that. Alright, so at the very bottom, we have .header. And now this is our header, remember? Right here, this is this element right there. So we're targeting this element, but we want to target the child element, which is nav. What this means is this element is the parent element, and this is the child element, alright? And similar, this is the parent element of this element, and that is the parent element of this element, and that is the parent element of this element. So you can see how HTML is set up with parents and children. So HTML is like the over parent, and then head is a child's element of HTML, and so is body. They're like siblings. And then title would be a child element of the head. I hope that makes sense. It's the best way I could explain it. But HTML is set up with parents, children, and so on. So we're going to target the nav, which is a child element of header. So in CSS, the way you do that is you just add the element that you want to target. So in this case, we're targeting header and then nav, and that would target the navigation elements only. We don't we don't have to make we don't have to add a class to this. We don't have to do nav class or nav ID because we can just target it from this parent. I hope that makes sense. So in header nav, we're going to set the width of the navigation. This is going to be what the navigation bar looks like. If we go to YouTube, you can see YouTube also has a navigation bar. It has the search, it has the upload, has all of this stuff. This is the YouTube navigation, and it stays up there when you scroll and all that stuff. I'm going to teach you how to do that too. And yeah, so it's the width of the navigation is also 100%. So we're going to do that too. We're going to go here. We're going to make the width 100% of the document. So 100% of this page right here. It's 100%. If a 70 would be shorter, it would be 70%. It's math. You guys went to school, you guys know. And we're going to make the height. Now, the height, you can make it whatever you want. I'm just going to make it 60 pixels because that's the height I like. And when you reload, it just pushed it down a bit. And right now, you can't really see the navigation. So I'm going to add a background color. We've done this. We've added background colors. This is super simple stuff, guys. And now you guys can make this whatever you want. You guys can make it green. I don't care. We can find a nice color in a second. And you can see how that looks like. Except now our links are invisible. You can't see them anymore because the links are also green. So let's find a nice color to use. So let's scroll down. Let's use this grayish color just because we're using gray. We'll use this dark gray color right there. So just copy that. Let's go. Oh, sorry, that's a different project I was working on. And there we go. It's just 2020. Let's reload, and that looks nice. All right, except as you can see, there's a small margin around it. It's not really 100% because there's a margin around it. And the way you change that, on default, there's a margin around it. So every page you're going to have, there's going to be a margin around it because that's the default style of the page. So when you scroll up to the body at the top, we're going to make another attribute, I guess, and we set margin to 0 auto. And this sets the margin on all of its sides to 0 automatically. So when you reload, so now it's 100%. As you can see, there's a little gap at the top, and that's because of the UL. So we'll change that in a moment. We'll change that in a moment. All right, so we're gonna leave the nav for now. Now we're gonna do header nav, and then we're gonna target we're gonna target the child element of the navigation, which is gonna be UL. All right, so that's header nav UL, and now we're targeting the UL and its styles, and we're just gonna, I guess, set the margin to 0 auto, and let's see what that does. That gets rid of that top thing, and ULs and LIs work really well together, which is why we're using them. All right. And we're going to leave that for now too. And now we're going to do header, nav, UL. And then the next one was, we got header, nav, UL, LI. And this is going to target all LIs of the child of UL. Okay, that doesn't make any sense. All right. So we have the UL, and we have 3 LIs, list items inside the unordered list. And now with CSS, when we do header nav UL li, that targets the header nav UL and then all of the li. So if we only wanted the first one, we would have to do something like this, which would target the first or whatever. But we're not going to do that right now. I'm not going to explain that right now because it's not important. If you really want to learn more about that, there's a ton of stuff you can add. There's a ton of stuff you can do with CSS. That's more complicated stuff. We're just going to have just parent and child elements of everything. You guys can Google that in your own time. So header nav ULLI, and we're just going to set the list style to none. And what that does, it just gets rid of the bullet points. So you guys can see those black bullet points. We don't like them, so we're going to get rid of them. And then we're going to do one more thing. Oh, sorry, I forgot one more thing at the UL. We're going to set the, we're going to display it differently. Right now it's displayed just the way that lists are usually displayed. We're going to display it in line though, because what that, alright, okay, so right now there's a new line for every list item, so we want to display it in line with each other because, you know, it's a navigation. And as you can see here, home, HTML, CSS, that's all displayed in line, and we want that too. So let's reload the page. And oh, right. I put it in the wrong place. Do display inline here. Sorry about that. Display inline. Let's go. And that displays all that inline, except it looks pretty messed up, and we don't like that link color. Yeah, it looks terrible. So we're gonna change that in a moment. And then we're gonna do header nav ul li, and then a, which is the links. So this targets all of the links. And now we're going to make the color to white. That's the first thing we're going to do, because no one likes that green color. It's not working. We want to be able to see our links. You guys can make it whatever color you want. You guys can make the header or the navigation whatever color you want. I'm just using this for sake of example. The green didn't really work well with this dark color, so I'm just going to set the links to white. And most all the links are underlined right now, but I don't like that they're underlined, so we're gonna do text decoration and then none. This gets rid of any decoration on the text, so that gets rid. Alternatively, we could have done text decoration overline, which would have added a line on top, but we don't want that either. On default, it's text decoration underline. Now you can add text decoration to whatever you want. It's not only lengths, but any text you can underline it. But we're not gonna have any, so we're gonna do none. There we go. And we're gonna add padding around everything. So let's do padding on the top. Let's do 10 pixels, and on the left we'll do 25 pixels. And this will, what just that will do is it will add 10 pixels to the bottom and 25 pixels to the bottom too. Except we don't want to write that much, so we're just gonna do it like that, and then CSS will automatically double it, if that makes sense. And that adds a little padding in between each link. Now this is a reason why Google Chrome comes really handy in development. If you right click on one of the link items and click inspect element, it will bring up your source code right here, and when you highlight over each element, it will highlight it on the page. So the body highlights everything because that's the body, and the header will highlight only the header, and then the nav will highlight only the nav. The UL will only highlight the UL, and the list will only highlight the list, and the link will only highlight the link. So, and then here you can see all the CSS. So we can change CSS. We can change the color. We can change the text decoration, the padding. We can change whatever we want. And as you can see, the padding at the top didn't work. Only the padding at the bottom worked. And that's because the page doesn't exist past the top. You can't. It doesn't work because what padding does, it adds space between itself and its parent element. And the list parent element didn't have any space at the top, so it couldn't apply the padding at the top. I hope that makes sense. So yeah, so what we're gonna do is in the list we're gonna margin. Now we're gonna do margin top. I'm gonna make it 30 pixels. Why? 30 pixels is because remember in header nav we set the height to 60 pixels. And we want all of our links to be in the middle of the navigation. And half of 60 pixels is 30 pixels, so it's just simple math. And that didn't do anything either. Alright? Why didn't it do anything? Because same reason with the links. It couldn't do anything. Sorry. And what we need to do, let's change that to padding. Let's try it out. And that doesn't do anything either. So we go up back to the UL and let's inspect the UL elements. Because as a developer, you need to be able to troubleshoot things. You need to be able to see why stuff isn't working. So in the UL, it displays this block. You can see all the default border and stuff. So, alright, that all looks good. But guys, as you see, that doesn't work either. And the reason it's not displaying correctly is because right now it's displayed, links are on default displayed in line, and the list items are also displayed in line because we just did display in line. And you can't add padding to something, or you can't add a padding top to something that's displayed in line. So what we need to do, is we need to display, and then we display it in line still, because we don't want to display block, which is the normal, what everything is default. We're going to display inline block. So this is the best of both worlds. It has inline properties and block properties. And what that does is it just adds a little space above the 30 pixels. But as you can see, 30 pixels wasn't enough. And we're gonna... Oh, right, never mind. It wasn't 30 pixels, it was 10 pixels. This doesn't make that, we don't need that anymore. I was just doing that for demonstration purposes. Here we have to change it to 30 pixels. And that is way too much. It adds 30 pixels from the top, except we have to take into account that our text also has a height. So we have to use some trial and error and check how stuff works out. So let's try 20 pixels and see how that looks like. And that looks great. 20 pixels works. And yeah, this is the padding. So this is the padding top, this is the padding right, and this is also the padding bottom, and this is the padding left. We could have also written it out like that, and it would have done the same thing, but we didn't need to, because it automatically it automatically does this if you only have the first two, I guess, parameters of the CSS attribute. Does that make sense? And if we didn't have the 25 pixels, then everything would be like that, because CSS automatically doubles it, or repeats it, I guess. But we specifically want the left and right to be 25 pixels, so we add that. If we wanted the top to be only 10 pixels, then we'd have to also specifically add that. And if we wanted the left to be 19 pixels, we'd also have to specifically add that. But if we just wanted it to be 25 pixels and 20 pixels, then we don't have to add that, because then it does it symmetrically. So yeah, that works. Now we have our beautiful navigation, which is beautiful. Except let's touch it up a bit, because yeah, it looks nice at the moment, but it doesn't have that navigation feel to it. So what you can do, I'm going to teach you a new CSS trick now, and that is the hover thing. Oh, I forgot what it's called right now. You just okay. So when you hover over stuff, let's go back here. When you hover over it, it underlines, right? And when you hover that, it turns red. And when you hover over that, it turns red. And when you hover over that, the button turns white. So the way that's done is in CSS to whatever you want. So we want the links when people hover over the links. So by the A, we're just gonna write a colon and then hover. And what that does is that all the CSS between these curly braces will execute when the mouse hovers over this element, which is all the links in the navigation. So in the hover, so no, not that's not it. All right. Anyways, we're gonna do text decoration underline. So that's what. So that when we hover over it, it underlines it. So people can see that they're actually hovering over it and don't have to guess. But that doesn't really look that nice. Alternatively, we could have color and make it yellow because we have a cheese block. And cheese is yellow, usually, unless it's blue cheese. Except, it looks nice, but not really what I'm looking for. But, when we inspect this element, I'll show you why I did something in a moment. You see how I added the padding? Not only does it add spaces, but it also surrounds the element. So right now, you can see it when I you can see it right there, all the padding. And that's the whole entire link element. So what that basically, we could add a background to it. Before we couldn't add we could add a background to it, but it wouldn't look nice at all. So now we can add a background to it. We can make it yellow. Except that looks terrible. We don't really want to have it like that. It's so bright. What we can do though. Wait, let's look here. So we want it yellow because it's cheese, but we don't want it that bright yellow. So we can look here for some pale yellows, like this yellow right here. I like this yellow. I'm gonna copy that. And as a web designer, you guys have to be able to make design choices. If you guys don't like it yellow, you guys don't have to have it yellow. So that's still really pale, or not pale. It's still really bright, and I don't like it. So, but we could also do is another way of showing colors. And you see how here next to 000 we also have RGB. RGB is another way of showing colors. So RGB stands for red, green, blue, and then the 0 here would be how much red, and that 0 would be how much green, and that 0 would be how much blue. So the highest is 255 for each. So we could have 255, 255, 255, and that would result in yellow. I mean, not in, what am I saying? White. White is RGB, and then 255, 255, because it's maximum of all of it, of all the red, green, and blue light. So with combinations of all of these, you can get different colors, if that makes sense. And the higher you go, the more brighter it gets. So yeah, but we don't know, we have this color right here, but we don't know what its RGB value is. So we're just going to copy it. I'm going to search that to RGB. And that in Color Combos, which is a great website for this color right here, the RGB is 255, 255, and 51. So instead of using color hex, which is the other thing, we're going to do RGB and then 255, 255, 51. And that should be exactly the same as before. Yep, exactly the same. except we don't want it exactly the same. The whole reason that we did this is because with RGB you can add one more thing. You can make it RGBA in the function. And what that does is it adds another parameter, and that's how transparency basically. So one would be full transparent. That would be not full transparent. What that does is it's full value, and anything below is how transparent it is. So 0.5 would be half transparency or translucency, whatever, and that makes it a bit more translucent. And then 0.2 would make it super translucent, and that makes it look kind of khaki. I don't really like that much. Whatever, it works. And yeah, so that's how we can do that. With RGBA, it adds an element of translucency. So now, if you guys don't like this color, you guys don't have to have this color. If you go to CSS colors, there's a ton of colors that you guys can choose. You guys don't even have to have an element of transparency, but I just like it like that. True, this color looks like vomit, but it's fine. I'm not gonna put this website online, so it doesn't really matter at the moment. So right now, you guys can see we have a navigation, and when you click on it, nothing happens because we haven't made those pages yet. But as you can see, when we scroll, it doesn't stay to the top, and that's because we need to add one more thing to the header nav, and that is making the position fixed, and that makes the position of the element fixed. Except that messes a bit up. We're gonna have to use some styling, but as you can see, it's fixed to the top, or almost to the top, and it doesn't move no matter how much we scroll. And then, but to fix that, there's that little gap. We're gonna make the top 0, and I'll explain that in a moment. And that gets rid of that gap. So basically, we got that little gap because the default position is relative, which is relative to the document, relative to its surrounding, and automatically goes to the top. That's how relative things, that's how they work. They automatically go to the top. And so if there's something above them, they go under it, and so on and so forth. So when we add fixed, we don't have that anymore. And yeah, it's the first element on the page, which is why I was on the top, but it wasn't at the very top because we didn't tell it to go to the very top. It was just above everything else. So when we add this attribute right here, which is top, that tells it to go top. It's like the XY coordinates of the page. So if you think of it in math class with graphs, we have the x-axis and the y-axis, and in HTML and CSS there's also the z-axis, but I'm going to go into that later. Or actually, never mind, I'll go into it right now. The z-axis is how close the thing is to your face. Does that make sense? Or how stuff overlays other stuff. Right now, our header has the highest z-axis, so it goes over everything. If we made something else have a higher z-axis, then everything else would go above the header. The header would still be fixed, but everything else would go above it. But on default, position fixed also makes the z-axis a bit higher, so it goes above everything and it overlays above everything. Nothing overlays above it. So that's the z-axis, basically depth. And so when we go here, where it's top 0, we can also do left. This is really hard to explain. Okay, so top 0 basically makes it go to the very top that it can. It's the very, very top of the document. And left 0 would make it go to the very left of the document. So top 0 and left 0 would make it go to the top left corner. Top 0 and right 0 would make it go to the top right corner. And bottom 0 and left 0, make it go to the bottom left. And then, yeah, does that make sense? But we could also make it top 10. Sorry, top 10, and that would make it 10 away from the 10 pixels away from the top. I hope I explained that well. If you guys have any more questions about that, hit me up with a comment in the video, because I need your comments, guys. I need your comments. So this is looking way better. How much time we have left? We don't have any more time left. Let's stop. All right, next tutorial we're going to add these pages, this is actually our home page. We're going to add the about page and the contact page. So guys, subscribe and like, comments, ask me questions. Thank you guys. Bye.